Hello, I'm Pat Harvey in Los Angeles with some big news. The CBS California stations are hosting a debate for the top candidates running for governor. And you can watch it or stream it on CBS stations across California at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 28th. And to help you get ready for the debate, CBS California reporter Julie Watts, CBS LA political reporter Tom Waite, and Pomona College political science professor Sara Sadhwani will hold weekly roundtables to provide news and analysis from the campaign trail. It's all part of our commitment at CBS California to help voters decide. Here are Tom, Sara, and Julie with this week's countdown to the governor's debate.
Thanks, Pat. And this week has, of course, yet again been another week of breaking news in this governor's debate. I think it came as a really big shock to hear that one of the candidates, Betty Yee, has actually stepped down from the race and endorsed Tom Steyer. That was such a huge turn of events. I think we've always known that there was a strong possibility that the field would clear by the time we got to Election Day, and I think we're definitely starting to see that. What have you guys been hearing or thinking about as you saw Betty Yee step down?
Yeah, I talked to her team on Sunday night, so we knew it was going to come down. And then Betty and I had a very emotional interview early Monday morning, hours before she made the public announcement. And I thought it was really interesting. The first thing I said is, who are you going to endorse? And she genuinely at that time did not know. So that to me is very telling. We talked a lot about that. What I thought was really interesting, and I said, why now? Like, are you being pressured? You've been asked to step down repeatedly, and you haven't. And she said, their polling was showing that experience and sort of competence was not polling high enough. And that was her thing. And I thought that was really interesting. So what is polling, right? And she was saying it is the drama. She was talking about how we are in this sort of, reality TV era of politics. And from early on, she was talking about they would do these forums, and the people who were fighting and who were the loudest and frankly the rudest got the most attention. She was joking with her team saying, gosh, I'd start throwing stools off the stage and maybe somebody will pay attention to me. But she also really talked about the money not coming. And she was really disappointed that backers, people who'd backed her previously, people in her community, really didn't coalesce around her this time. And so when I saw the announcement, it's funny, her team reached out right before the announcement to endorse Steyer. And I was surprised. My understanding is that there's some, they have some mutual friends. So I knew that there was that, but I was surprised when she endorsed Steyer. I will say that, especially after the conversation we had.
Julia, I used part of your interview in my piece yesterday, and it was really touching to see Betty Yee so emotional. You could see she really, really cares genuinely, and obviously she's been a public servant for a long time. And I thought it was interesting too that she, as to piggyback on your point, is that she kind of talked about basically how the chair of the Democratic Party, Rusty Hicks' strategy worked, that it chilled donors in that releasing those polls, those internal polls, really kind of had an impact, probably the one that Hicks and the other state Democratic Party leaders wanted it to have, which is to kind of pressure people, the candidates and the donors, to make decisions about campaigns. And it clearly had a very emotional impact as well. But, this kind of now leads us into our debate, which is coming up. And now, we obviously extended an invitation to Yee, but we don't expect her to be there now. But really
well,
now,
I asked her to come as a guest, so hopefully she will.
Very good. All right, that's awesome. But it'll be interesting now. I mean, obviously, with a fewer people there on the stage, who's going to stand out? And I think this is a huge opportunity, obviously, with ballots, coming out very shortly. And, to Betty Yee's point, what does it take to break through and to stand out on that debate stage?
I think that is the question that everybody is asking. This is such a crowded field, even still, right? Even though we've had two candidates remove themselves from this race, it remains crowded. Voters continue to largely be undecided. Who can be the most distinct? Who can show themselves to be the most competent? who can be the most purposeful. I mean, I think all of those pieces are the opportunity on a debate stage to not only introduce yourself to California voters, but to really distinguish yourself, not just in responding to moderators' questions, but in responding to one another as well.
Yeah, and we've obviously seen Becerra have this sort of meteoric rise, right? Like he was pulling down in the 5% for a long time. And then when Swalwell dropped out, and now even after Betty, we're starting to see a lot of those folks move over to Becerra. It was interesting at the Democratic convention, right? Swalwell got the most delegates, then Betty, then Becerra. And so it seems like those party insiders are sort of shifting over to Becerra. The question is, though, is it enough to beat Steyer? And now with Betty's endorsement of Steyer, certainly he's more on that progressive side. It's going to be interesting to see really how they handle each other on the debate stage and if they can sort of stand out and how they interact, frankly.
Well, and also we got obviously the two Republicans are going to be on that stage too. So are the Democrats going to, aim their attacks at the Republicans or at each other? That's going to be an interesting twist as well, because we obviously those two Republicans are polling really well. When you still have a lot of Democrats in the race, you've got the votes sort of in the polling anyway carved up and distributed there between those candidates. So now you have these two Republicans, Steve Hilton, who pretty much has been the top polling candidate in almost all of the polls that I've seen. So do the Democrats go after him? Do they say, hey, look, this guy on the stage, he wants to be governor of California and he has Trump's endorsement. And I also think it's interesting. I was watching some of our coverage last night of some of the other candidates. And it strikes me as interesting that a lot of these conservative candidates, these two top polling candidates, they're really doing a lot of conservative media, Newsmax, Lindell TV, Fox News. If they want to win in California, they're going to have to do the sort of MS Nows or more liberal, more progressive media, because they're going to have to eventually they're going to leave this primary. They're going to have, potentially one of them is going to be in the general election. And you can't win in California unless you at least capture some of the centrist Democratic vote. So I'm just curious so far of their media strategy. Maybe it's just to really focus on the primary because that's what their sights are set on right now. But I wonder how that strategy will work or if it will change.
That's such a great point, Tom. And I can't help but wonder also, when you think if their strategy is going out after the same pool of voters, Republicans who support Donald Trump. We know that there's a difference there. There's Republicans, there's also a whole lot of independents who might lean Republican but don't necessarily support the president and the president's policies. Both Hilton and Bianco definitely have crafted themselves in the image of Donald Trump. And I have to wonder, so much of our conversation has been, given the top two primary that we operate here in California, one of these individuals will make it through, maybe two of them could make it through. What if it came down and they actually split the Republican vote and we see independents actually come back and vote for some of these various Democrats? So I think there could potentially even be a scenario in which neither of these Republicans makes it past the primary if they do indeed split that vote. I think we thought, and we've talked about before, that the Trump endorsement to Hilton would really give him a boost, but we're still seeing Chad Bianco with a fair amount of support, even in this moment as well.
Yeah, and Tom, to your point, in talking with the campaigns, they are all very much focused on their key bases right now. The Democrats, I don't think they'll waste any time attacking Bianco or Hilton unless it's to make them sound like they are tough on Trump, right? So we know that the Democrats, following Prop 50, are all trying to be the toughest anti-Trump candidate. And for the two Republicans, really, they are focused on beating each other, right? And I think I've mentioned this to you before, but Hilton's team really believes that they can win a general because Trump got 6 million votes and they only need 5 million and some change. So if they can bring out enough Trump voters, they can win a general election. And I think for those of us who sort of see all media, to your point, Tom, it is sort of perplexing that you're only focused and you're so focused on this sort of MAGA base when you will need some independence in order to win in California. It's funny, if you'll remember in my interview with Katie Porter, I sort of said the same thing. How do you win over some of those Trump voters? And she said, I don't need them to win. Well, obviously, any Democrat who could pick up a few of those votes right now would be doing a little bit better in the primary. But I do think there very much is a focus, and they are hyper-focused on winning their own base and getting enough of their own base just to get through the primary, and then they will start trying to soften and appeal to everyone. At least that's what they're telling me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess, and I guess in a crowded field, it seems to me, just to your point too, like with Katie Porter, when you asked her about getting votes from Trump supporters, it wouldn't be a bad idea, I would think, for these Republicans to start maybe, get the training wheels on and do a few appearances on sort of more progressive, quote unquote, media, because they can use all the votes they can get too, right, in the primary. It's a crowded field, and why not try to reach out to some, potential Democrats who might be feeling disheartened with the party or angry about the direction of things in California. I'm sure there's a number of disgruntled Democrats out there. So, but I guess that's typical in these situations. Politicians obviously focus on their bases in these primary elections. So yeah, I think also when we look at the candidates on the stage, you have the people, the Villaragosas and the Mahans of the world, Tony Thurmond, much lower polling candidates. This is kind of a make or break for them, because if they can't make some noise and make some headlines, or at least get supercharged or give a little boost to their campaigns, I think they're going to have to make some tough choices because they're polling so low. Mahan, it seems like a lot of people want him to grab that momentum, but it's just not really happening. I mean, he got a little bit of a boost when Swalwell dropped out, but I think that those lower polling candidates, the stakes are so high for them in the debate on Tuesday.
And I think that is the absolutely right point, Tom. These candidates need to deliver one or two breakout moments. We, of course, know everyone's going to tune in and watch the entirety of the debate, but there's also something to be said for those clips that come out of a debate that have the potential to go viral. That's oftentimes those rebuttals, the one-liners, those moments in which you can really see candidates sparring and feel like one of them is winning. So often that is how people ultimately perceive debates, is from these viral moments. So can some of these candidates, the Villaragosas, the Mahan, Thurmond, can they have those moments in the debate? I think that's an absolutely consequential question for all of these folks.
And here's the great news, guys. So when somebody does have that breakout moment, which we know they will, we have our side-by-side candidate guide going live today. Folks can start looking at it Thursday. And what this is, remember, we did 20 hours of accountability interviews with 15 candidates. 8 of them are still actively in the race and on the ballot. And so we have put together this incredible interactive voters guide where you can pick any candidate and any topic, and you hear their responses to these accountability questions and to the follow-up questions in depth on every issue. And then you can compare them side by side. So let's say at the end of the debate, there are 2 candidates that you're just like, ooh, I don't know which one I like better. Well, what issues matter to you? You go to our candidate guide, you click on homelessness, you click on insurance, you click on gas prices, and you hear the difference in their lengthy responses and the responses to, of course, our accountability follow-up questions. And I really think that's going to help voters make that final decision. So it'll be fun to see, and we'll be able to track, right, how many people are clicking on which candidates and learning more about them following our debate.
And we just want to tell everyone we're super excited to have you all watch our debate on Tuesday. And we have invited these 8 candidates who are at the top of the recent polls, who are actively campaigning. We're aiming to have the most inclusive, most impactful debate and the most watched, because we'll, of course, be broadcasting live on CBS stations across California and our streaming platforms. So very excited, and our 2 moderators here with you now.
Yes, and this one's national. 24/7 is picking it up across the country. So people will be watching this debate across the country.
There we go.
And that's this week's countdown to the governor's debate. And I'll see you on debate night live from Pomona College and live across California. You can watch it or stream it all on CBS stations or their digital sites at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 28th.